For those that are joining us over the internet, we have probably 75 to 100 people here at the Natural Resources Agency headquarters for this hybrid meeting. This, of course, is another meeting of our Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force, and very excited with the agenda we have today, really focused on community-led wildfire protection. And we've got a set of great panels and speakers here today. But before we jump in, I just want to point out some housekeeping for those who are joining in person. You all see the exits. There are exits literally at the four corners of this auditorium. At any point, if somebody needs to take a call, please do so outside. Restrooms are outside in the atrium underneath the stairs to the right. Huge thanks to Patrick and the team for preparing a great discussion here today. And again, this is a hybrid meeting, so we'll work to ensure that folks who are not joining us in person are able to connect with us. Big thanks to the executive team or the executive committee, as always, and my co-chair, Jen Eberlein. I've got some opening remarks, but why don't I turn to Jen first?
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. As Wade said, it is so great to be here and kind of get a nice cap and close out for a fantastic year that we've had. Very excited to close out the busy calendar year. And just looking back, I'm just so proud of all the progress that we've made as a task force and committees and teams that we've had. And just a really quick, if you remember, we really started out with a lot of storms. Atmospheric rivers that came in. We're all paying attention to this week as well in terms of what may be coming. Thankfully, the fire season was fairly mild, although we certainly had impacts. We responded to thousands across all of our state, county, and federal teams, thousands of lightning strikes and wildfires, and really looking to thank all of our firefighters and all of our communities for really protecting lives, as well as doing that very important work of reducing our risk and threats that we have on the landscape as well. So for federal wise, I'm really proud. You'll see some numbers, pretty impressive, of some of the money that we have invested in getting our lands to a better resilient state. So we have about $620 million in funds that have been targeted to our wildfire crisis landscapes with the Forest Service. Very proud of that. And out of that, $485 million is already being used by partners, contractors, and the Forest Service to implement those on-the-ground projects. That is fantastic news. And this is going to directly benefit over 100 communities. So the outputs and outcomes are starting to flow through that. I'm also very proud that for our fiscal year, which ended September 30th for the Forest Service, federal government, we had 320,000 acres of managed lands for hazardous fuels reduction through mechanical treatments, as well as controlled and prescribed fire. So very proud of that one too. And we're looking to increase that as we can. Very happy for the cool weather that we've had to be able to do some additional controlled or prescribed fire burns that we've had across it. And then I just want to say, we also really are expanding our work with our tribal nations as well. So very excited to see some of projects that are coming online as we move into 2024. Quickly, had a great time in Reading at our last task force meeting. And I'll just say we have hit all 4 regions now. So very impressive. Really looking forward to seeing how we come together in 2024 for that. So especially in Reading, we were very much reminded that place matters. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about our communities during this session that we have also. So looking forward to hearing more about how we work together to do our risk reduction and have resilient landscapes. And I'll say this at the end, but thank you. Thank you all for all of the incredible work. We're all in this together. And I look forward to 2024. So as I'm going to turn it over to my co-chair.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jen. I think we can safely say that we are out of the height of wildfire season. And I want to thank CAL FIRE and the U.S. Forest Service and the men and women that were protecting us yet again this year. Pretty remarkable year in terms of just the moderate level of wildfire that we had. We'll be looking at the numbers of prescribed fire and wildfire resilience management. And it's pretty remarkable that the acreage for all that resilience work is probably pretty comparable to the acreage of wildfires over the last year. Of course, Mother Nature had a lot to do with that, but so did improved response by our state, federal, and local firefighters, as well as the resilience projects that you all are implementing, paying off. So really good to hear that. With that, let me turn it to our CAL FIRE Director in Chief, Joe Tyler, for a report.
Well, thank you, Wade. Again, Joe Tyler, Director, Fire Chief at CAL FIRE. The agenda today is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm proud to hear that, that we hit all 4 regions. But today is about fire-adapted communities, and I look forward to hearing the presentations. And this is an area that we continue to talk about. We talk about where the point of ignitions are. We talk about protecting our communities, and we talk about making our wildlands more resilient. But we find so often that that when the fire then enters the community or the wildland or urban interface, and we begin having structure fires, that's the conflagration that really occurs there and devastates the community. So finding and learning ways again today and having open discussion about making those communities more resilient is so important. As was already said, it was quite a remarkable year. And while we are out of the height of the fire year, we still experience Santa Ana wind events, even right now as we speak in Southern California. But the work and the prevention and the response going into that will take the fire outside of Ventura, the South Fire here just last week, in a Santa Ana wind condition was just over 2,900 acres. Now think of how that might have been in that 2014 to 18 period, 20 or 21. Could have been much more severe. And while we do thank Mother Nature for the work there, I agree that it is the resources, the women and men of the fire service, including our federal partners, our tribal partners, state and local, that really made a difference. And seeing this year thus far, even though we're not at the end of the calendar year of only having 322,000 acres across the state that have burned, really shows the efforts of prevention that are going into that work. Now, we have always had some goals to achieve, and those goals are making sure that in a fiscal year that we're hitting over 500 projects. That was a commitment of the governor some time ago. And, just right now in the middle of, at the end of November, that stat, 397 projects have been worked on thus far this year, over 33,000 acres on the state responsibility area that have been treated. And I'm so proud of the partners that are out there that are burning together. Almost 20,000 acres of prescribed fire. We saw that 2 years ago, or last year actually, where we were burning in September, October, November, really trying to change a culture and a paradigm of making our landscape more resilient and putting natural intervals back on the landscape. But this year, we found ourselves in situations where we had opportunities to burn throughout the fire year, throughout July, August, September, October, really making promise to the work that continues to move forward. Lastly, to keep it short, I just want to put a plug in for a major accomplishment that has moved forward as of yesterday. Yesterday morning, Congress approved and moved to the president's desk the National Defense Authorization Act, and in that there's approval to transfer the 7 C-130s that we've talked about for so long from our federal partners to our state partners. All the maintenance, all the work ahead of time has been done. We will just then receive title of those aircraft and put the retardant delivery systems in ourselves. So we are hopeful. This has been a long process. Jen has been a part of that. Her agency has been a part of that for a long time, starting as far back as 2013, before it transitioned to the state in 2018, and to try to finally move this forward to finality. This transition should put an aircraft in the air in 2024.
And Chief Tyler, that's a big deal because we've been expanding, strengthening our aerial assets, our fixed wing, our helicopters, to be able to more effectively fight fires. And these C-130s will be a huge augmentation to that.
They certainly will. The governor's investments the last 2 years have authorized funding for 18 rotary wing aircraft and then additional fixed wing aircraft. But you think of our S2 air tankers that carry anywhere between 800 and 1,200 gallons of retardant, depending on where they're flying, to move to a C-130 that carries 4,000 gallons of retardant at a time. 5 of those 7 will be placed at bases across the state. 2 will remain in reserve. But we'll really provide additional suppression, assistance, and power from the air.
Thanks so much, Joe. I want to welcome Supervisor Ed Valenzuela to the meeting. Supervisor Valenzuela, of course, represents Siskiyou County, and in this capacity is representing California State Association of Counties, and he strengthens our local representation, of course, anchored by Doug Teeter, Supervisor from Butte County. So critically important to have our local partners here, particularly leaders in parts of the state that are really impacted by wildfire. So great to have you here. Do any other executive committee members care to make any opening remarks? Supervisor Teeter.
Super quick, and I'm fortunate to be on this board at the pleasure of RCRC. And I just want to give an update. RCRC had an ad hoc committee on the insurance issue. As we all know, those that live in the rural areas are facing a crisis. And at our last meeting is where we had some policy principles. So if anyone's interested, either reach out to me or Stacy Heaton here on what RCRC came up with to help alleviate the problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Supervisor Teeter, and that could be a subject for a future task force meeting. Very important topic. Don.
Yes, good morning, and thanks, Wade, and everybody for joining. I am representing the Indigenous Stewardship Network today, and I guess when I think about the opportunities that are here and the discussions we're going to have today around fire adapted communities, I think it's important for us to recognize that the first fire adapted communities were those within our Indigenous communities. And our traditions of stewardship within the landscapes were something that obviously through colonization and policies that have been put forth in the state really remove fire from the hands of the people. And so as we think about what the future looks like, I want to just put that thought in our minds of where and how we can re-empower communities, Indigenous and our non-Indigenous communities, to be able to steward with fire. With that in mind, I also want to give some updates, some highlights from things within the world of the Indigenous Stewardship Network. We, over the last several months, have been working with partners through the Regional Fire Force Capacity Grant Program to support projects, spending over $360,000 to support various projects across the state where tribes are engaging in fire planning, in implementation of cultural burns and in prescribed burns, training across generations, everything from tribal youth to intergenerational learning opportunities and capacity building. I won't list those because it'll take me too long to get through them all, but really important work that's taking place as communities are starting to, again, pick up the torch. I also want to just say that, there's been a lot of policy work. I know there was discussion about some of the federal efforts that were taking place. And recently, we've had the Wildfire Mitigation Commission report from the federal administration. 22 of the 148 recommendations are focused on tribal communities within that. And I just recognize that we, in the work that we've done within this task force, have kind of set the bar, I think. In one, there's a recommendation for recognition of cultural burning, which this state was the first to do that with work in support of this task force. So I think that's a really important step. Another piece that I think not only the state, but also the federal government really needs to work on is the recognition of tribal sovereignty to steward, particularly on trust lands. That's not only a responsibility for Bureau of Indian Affairs, but it's across all lands, to be honest. And then also just recognizing the opportunities to protect against the tort claims, suits that are potentially there for tribal and non-tribal partners, and really understanding and valuing the opportunities for co-management and co-stewardship. So I think those are really important shifts that are signaled by some of the 22 recommendations that are there around Indigenous stewardship. And again, this task force and the work that our partners within the state are doing are really in alignment with that. I want to note that last week we had a really fantastic conference down in Monterey, the Association for Fire Ecology Congress. It was the 10th Congress. It was attended by, I think, over 1,000 people. I know officially in person there were 895 people. We had 2 full-day sessions on Indigenous fire, one global, one statewide. And the themes of Indigenous stewardship were really powerful, and people were really interested in it. So I'm really looking forward to the synergies around that. And just lastly, I'll note that that this week on the CSU Chico campus, where I also work, we were able to partner with the Mechoopda tribe to carry out a cultural burn on a CSU campus. It was the very first time that this had been done on a CSU campus. And significant in the fact that the tribe had not been able to burn on that site in probably 140 years. So I'll leave that. I don't have pictures to show of that. It's pretty amazing. But if you're interested, contact me. I'll send you information. Thank you.
Don, thank you for that update and all of your leadership on this work. My colleague Sam Asefa, who leads the Governor's Office of Planning and Research.
I just want to say I'm really excited about the program today to very specifically talk about how the state could support local communities face the challenges they face in so many different fronts, and what are the ways that we can actually collaborate to address resiliency. I say this because my office often engages with local communities from work on their general plan, but most importantly, specific to this issue, addressing providing technical assistance, technical planning guidelines for local agents, communities to be more resilient. It's good to see Eric DeCock here, who has led our efforts for many years, and he's engaged the ground with communities. And just last month, my office convened a roundtable with about 80 city managers throughout the state, representing over 25 million populations, to very specifically listen from them, and city managers are the ones who actually make things happen on the ground, what challenges they face from specifically around climate change, land use, and any number of legislation that affect sort of the built environment. It was an eye-opener. Some of it we knew, but things that sort of surfaced to the top is not only the local jurisdiction and leaders have challenges because of the multiple and sometimes seemingly contradictory mandates that come from the state. We have significant goal for housing, but we also want to protect where that housing is built because of fire and climate change. A number of legislation around sort of adaptation, resiliency that affects land use. So what we heard again and again is we are completely challenged because there's so many issues that are interrelated that are coming at us. We don't have the capacity. We need to figure out how we coordinate with the state to actually help the communities be more resilient. So for that reason, I really find this conversation specifically around fire resiliency important, and I'm looking forward to hear what we could do to be more effective around empowering local communities around those issues.
Sam, thanks so much for all the work OPR does as a key connector with local communities on planning for resilience. And so if there are panelists today that have suggestions around how the state can improve its support of communities planning for wildfire resilience, please be clear about those because Sam and myself and others are, of course, listening. Supervisor Valenzuela.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Crowfoot. I have been appointed by the California State Association of Counties, and I'm excited to be here. I appreciate all the work that's been done on this task force. And my goal would be to attend 100% of the meetings. I'll tell you that, partnering with CAL FIRE up in Siskiyou County, there's a lot going on. I want our partners with Cal OES. We've done some projects. As you well know, this is an ongoing process. So I appreciate being a participant and appreciate the time.
Thanks so much. And because it's your first meeting, I'll just share, we are open to any and all input and feedback and even criticism around how the state can support local efforts.
I can assure you I will give you some.
Excellent. Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I'm excited about the topic for today, and just to mention some of the research that we're doing at PSW that's a little bit related. We have some exciting ongoing as well as completed research on sociodemographics around wildfire risk and how low-income homeowners deal with risk and the need for financial incentives, as well as looking at post-fire recovery after and how that varies from location to location in terms of some of the sociodemographics, and just to mention some of that research that we're doing. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Julianne, and for all the work of the U.S. Forest Service Pacific Research Station. Your presence and Richard's presence on this executive committee is really meant to underscore the importance of science as a basis for everything that we do.